Aloha, beautiful souls. How are y'all doing today? We off on many beautiful adventures. So today I wanted to express my experience. So a lot of people, and I've heard this a million times over, we're just not compatible, right? How many of us have heard this? And how many of us have bought into that belief system? I know I did for quite a few years, right? And I began to really question this because of what I was experiencing. So part of this, you have to know some of my back history. I was in an environment with a lot of old people, and I loved it. Like, from the time I was very, very young, I had a lot of access and a lot of entertainment from old people. We're talking, at the time I was like 5, so to me 50 at the time was old. So anywhere from 50 up into 90 and 100-year-old people I had a lot of experience with as a child, and I loved it, and it's one of my favorite things about how I grew up. And because I was so curious and, did not have the normal mentality of a 5-year-old, one of the things that I asked a lot of these older people, because a lot of them had been married for 30 plus years. I think the longest couple that I ever met, they were married 70 plus years. Can you imagine that? 70 plus years. And so from the time I was 5, I would always ask them, how did you do that? Like, how did you find each other? And then how did you make it last? Like, how? And the thing that I started to notice, I think it was around, I want to say it was like 19. I was probably around 19 when I started to really look back and notice this. That a great number of these couples, not all of them, but a great number of them, were what the world, in general, psychologists would call incompatible. They were opposites. They had very little that we would think of as in common, enough to build something on. So how did they make it last? And you could tell that these people didn't just stay married because they were like, oh, well, I don't want to go find somebody else. They adored each other. Even like 70 plus years old, when, everything else has died out, they would come cuddle each other. They would come kiss each other. They would give each other little gifts. They were adorable. You could tell that they would genuinely loved each other, genuinely loved being with each other. So then when I started to look back and I started to realize that a lot of these couples were very, very different, it started to make me wonder, well, is compatibility really what everyone says it is? Is it actually a deal breaker? And what made these couples that most people would consider incompatible last and grow into incredible relationships, like what we all want and dream of? And after thinking about the questions that I had asked him, I asked them how they did it and what they loved about each other. And it was very interesting. One of the key components was that they were problem solvers, and they didn't see their differences as a problem. They did say that at particular times it was challenging because they had this problem or that viewpoint and that viewpoint. And so it was challenging. But once they got past the challenge, it helped them to grow in a way that nothing else had. And so they began to have this real appreciation for the differences in each other. Now, the other thing that these interviews made me realize is that relationship, and this could be romantic, this could be friends, this could be family, this could be business partnerships, relationships in general are an ongoing and ever-evolving negotiation of what both parties want. It's not this, you have to be this way, or you have to like the same things as me in order for the relationship model to work. It is a negotiation of, I need this, I can give you this. And when you look at that, it's really life-changing. Now, the other part of this is, because a lot of people will say, well, you can't give me that unless you have that background. And I think there's a yes-no there. Okay, so I think that there's discernment that is required in this. Because I find that a lot of people who say that, they come from a very, how would we put it? They come from kind of a black and white headspace. Okay, so you can only give me this if you have this experience, which is the same as me, because I don't want to experience different from me, right? It's an interesting viewpoint. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's an interesting point. So my opinion and my viewpoint on how relationships work in general, and especially romantic relationships, has completely shifted from when I was younger to where I was like looking for somebody who would do all my same hobbies with me, do this, do that with me, you know, the typical you're compatible with me model, to how do you compromise with me? How do you negotiate with me? How do you communicate with me? Because I think that if you look at NVC, nonviolent communication, which is really just another term for empathetic communication, and you look at restorative justice models, anyone can find common ground. And you can build relationships with almost anyone if you have the right mindset. If you have a mindset where you are evolving, enlightening, and appreciating the differences in each other. I put it this way. Each person in your life is a unique journey. Okay, so imagine you're going to one of the most beautiful places in the world. It could be the Swiss Alps, it could be the Bahamas, whatever suits your fancy. Each person is its own incredibly unique, special, amazing destination. And if you put rules on this, like, you're not compatible with me, either friends, family, or lovers, you miss the experience. Because you're so busy counting all the ways that they're different from you, you're not focused on building connection. And connection is really what we want. But we're so busy and focused on disconnection, all the ways you don't fit me, that we're not focused on how can I connect with you? How can I experience your perception to the fullest? So that's just something that I wanted to put out there, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Aloha, and I hope you have an incredible, amazing day and get to journey through many people.